In this video, I'm going to be discussing how to trade the 5-minute chart. Now, I'm going to just give you some disclaimers as we start out this video. I personally don't trade the 5-minute chart. This is not something, that is my, specialty or anything like that. So just full transparency. It's not something that I am doing constantly. But I can, in this video, give you some tips as to, in my opinion, the better ways to approach this if you do plan on trading the 5-minute chart. Now, the 5-minute chart has some really good pros and cons. So in fact, let's start out with that. Let's look at some pros and then we'll look at some cons. So in terms of pros, it is a really great thing for day trading. So day trading, we'll do day trading check. Day trading, great for the 5-minute chart. Also for the 5-minute chart, it is fast. So if there's a new move developing in the markets, a lot of times the 5-minute chart, you can jump into that very, very quickly, right? So for example, if you're looking at the Euro USD and you see it trending right now, right? You may see this and may be able to pick up on that sooner than somebody who's looking at the 1 hour or 4 hour chart, right? So to be fair to the scalpers or day traders out there, the 5-minute chart can be very quick for picking up on new developing trends and things happening in the markets. In terms of the 5-minute chart, it is very, very fast paced also. So you have the ability to get in and out very quick, which can be awesome, especially for, people who sort of don't like holding on to trades for a while. It's great for those sort of people because again, let's say that you took this buy trade here, you're in the trade, you're able to close out here. That's about an hour and a half of trading, and then you are out of the trade and you could catch a pretty good move. Now, the final thing I will say is that this is sort of a pro and a con, but one, I'm going to put it in the pros. There are nice sessions that the 5-minute chart can be great for. Okay, so when I say sessions, I'm talking about when the London session begins. That's when the UK gets to their trading. You have the New York session as well, of course. Any of those times, this can be a great time to catch some volatility, get in and get out, and be done. So certainly some pros. I'm not going to lie. There are definitely some undisputable pros of the 5-minute chart. The cons, however, we do have to talk about this, of course. Everything in trading has pros and cons. There's nothing that's just all good. Everything has its ups and downs. So the big obvious one is that with the lower time frames, you have to be careful of noise. Right? So we know that on the 5-minute chart, sometimes you just get these whiplash moves that aren't true, follow through moves. And that can be a little bit frustrating to deal with. And there are some ways that we can try and navigate that, which maybe we'll talk about in this video. Also, a little bit of thing that you have to contend with is, of course, the spread, right? So anytime you take a trade on your broker, they offer you a spread, meaning that if I wanted to buy the Euro USD at this time, right? I'd want to buy this trade here, but I would actually get filled maybe here. So what that is that's the spread, right? So the broker, they sell you this position here and they take that little bit of spread. That's how they make their money, right? And so that's just something that if you're going to be a day trader, you have to think about, right? So when we're looking at something, we have to consider that the spread is not in our favor on these lower time frames. If you're swing trading, that spread means very little because you're going for very big moves compared to if you're day trading, that spread actually means quite a bit. And it may not sound like a lot, but let's say that you were, for example, risking 10 pips, right? 10 pips, but then you have a two pip spread to get in. Now you're put in right off the bat, you're down 2 pips on the trade, right? So again, if my stop loss was here, for example, and let's just pretend that I wanted to sell this trade right here, right? So if I wanted to sell, I get the spread, so I actually end up getting into the trade. I'm filled. I'm doing this wrong. So in the sell situation, it would actually sell it to me at a slightly lower price. So in this case, I would actually get here, right? So I'd be selling into this trade. Sorry, I had to think about this. And now that same stop loss that was 10 pips away because of the spread, it is now 12 pips, okay? I hope that this is making sense, but what I thought would be 10 pips ends up being 12 pips because of the added spread, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're, risking $10 per pip or something like that, that would be $120 risk instead of just $100. So you have to account for this when looking at the market that you're going to be trading. So so those are the main two ones. Of course, there are other probably small ones, but those are the main two ones that come to mind in terms of cons. Now let's talk about this because there are some ways that we can try and combat this. So the first thing I want to say for tips for trading the 5-minute chart, I will say this. Two things to really pay attention to, we mentioned it earlier, are sessions and spreads, okay? So check this out. When looking at markets, right, if you're going to be day trading, if you're going to be trading the 5-minute chart, you probably want to pay attention to markets at the right time, right? If you were trading this during this time, there's no volatility here. And as a 5-minute chart trader, you're going to need that volatility in order to make any money because you need the markets to move. So when I'm talking about, picking a session, what I'm talking about is figure out what time the markets are open or most active for your respective time. So for example, the London session for me is not something that I really can trade because it occurs at 3 a.m. US Eastern. It's 8 a.m. London time, but it's 3 a.m. for me. So I can't really trade that. However, the New York session, which starts around 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. US Eastern, could be a decent time for me to look for that. And that's usually where you're going to see volatility expand, where you're going to see bigger candles. And again, if we're going to be trading the 5-minute candles, we don't want to be caught up in nothingness like this. Like that is not any good for us to trade because we need movements for us to make any money, right? So pay attention. If you're going to be trading the 5-minute chart, you have to do it at the right time. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to trade the 5-minute right now when there's nothing going on. You've got to find volatility. Also, this is a very big thing. Oh, I need to mention this as well. News, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. The next thing I'm going to talk about is spreads. So if you're going to be trading the 5-minute chart, we mentioned how spreads are a serious dilemma for day traders and scalpers. What can we do to combat this? Well, you probably need to stick to, in my opinion, markets that are going to offer tighter spreads. Okay, so now this is on top of your session. So you're thinking about trading the right time. Now you're looking at this thing and you're saying, okay, what's the spread of this market? And you can find those quotes from your broker and you can probably compare other brokers too. Some of the other brokers may offer tighter spreads. You're looking for the tightest spreads, and I'll give you some hints. I pulled up Euro USD for a reason. Euro USD usually on most brokers has some of the tightest spreads due to the very high trading volume every single day on this currency pair. Now, if you were to go trade something, I'm going to pull that back up. If you were to go trade something like USD ZAR, this is an exotic currency pair. The spreads on this are not so great for intraday trading. It can actually be quite awful because the spreads are not so tight. In fact, they're very loose. You might want to buy here. Well, it'll give you that entry up here, or even worse, up here, right? You don't want that, because that makes it very, very difficult to overcome that spread. So that spread is either very tight, like on things on like GBP USD or Euro USD, right? Those are going to offer those tighter spreads, whereas certain markets will offer less tight spreads. And that's what you probably want to avoid if you're going to be scalping the 5-minute charts. Okay? Big one here. Big tip for you. News is your worst enemy if you are on the wrong side of it. As a scalper, unless you're trying to predict the news, it's probably worth knowing at least when that news is set to come out. Now, you can find this with sites. I'll give you a site to check out really quick. Head over to Forex Factory.com. If you head over to forexfactory.com and go to the calendar on Forex Factory, you can find in your, where you can change it to your time zone and you can find out when the next big news releases are coming out. I highly encourage you to check that for news before you take trades, because again, if you take a trade, let's say, you went long on this trade just before news, and then you have this massive candle to the downside because of news, it can, blow your account. You can do something really dumb really quick. So again, be very, very mindful if you're going to be trading the 5-minute chart with news. Okay, so now that we've done all of the homework and the housework on trading the 5-minute chart, sessions, spreads, paying attention to the news, all the things that you need to at least be concerned about if you're going to be trading it, what kind of strategies work for the 5-minute chart? Well, it very much depends on your trading style. There's not, just like in any other time frame, there's not one time or one technique that's going to make you super profitable and others are just going to be awful. No, it's actually just like anything else. Looking for breakouts, looking for trend continuations. If I'm looking at this, maybe I'm looking at a pullback to something like this for a possible buy, right? Something like that. Past resistance, looking for supportive levels, looking to manage my stop loss, and everything that we talk about on this channel still applies. Just, it doesn't change just because we're looking at the 5-minute chart. We still have to consider all the right tools that we want to use in our trading. For me, that usually means going with the trend. So for example, right here on the Euro USD, I'd probably have a bullish bias, but this brings me to a very important topic. Even though we're trading the 5-minute chart, it doesn't mean we can't look at the other time frames. Let's, for example, change the chart to the 15-minute chart, and we can use this to our advantage. What are we doing on the 15-minute chart? We can use this as context. Oh, we're forming a higher low. We're showing some demand in this market, and it may have looked like we could have seen a previous breakout there to the upside. Maybe we see some more upside for the euro dollar, and there could be some opportunities to look to buy the retest of support, right? So this is what I mean by, yes, we're trading the 5-minute, but it doesn't mean we can't look at things like the 1 hour. It doesn't mean we can't look at the 15-minute chart. For me, what is going to probably be most relevant if I'm looking at the 5-minute chart are charts like the 15, the 30, and the 1 hour. Again, I'm looking for short-term momentum plays if I'm going to be trading this. Again, the 5-minute chart is what we're executing on, but it doesn't mean we can't take into consideration other charts like the 15-minute, the 1 hour chart, the 4-hour chart maybe, but honestly, if I'm day trading, I'd be more interested on just looking at those lower time frames and looking for the moves there as things are getting going, right? And again, all of those things in mind, it's going to come down to a little bit of finesse because you've got to be at the charts at the right time. You've got to find the right entries according to your strategy. You've got to be catching, the moves when they're happening and avoiding the chop. Because I think a lot of struggle for a lot of the traders out there who do trade these lower time frames, they get very, very chopped up by situations like this where the thing is not moving. It's just chopping back and forth and tagging them for a stop. I will say also with the 5-minute chart, a very tight stop loss can be very tricky because of that spread dilemma that we talked about earlier, where you're constantly, fighting that spread, and then it's very easy to take stop losses because of it, is something that you're going to have to think about. Like I said, this is personally not my style of trading. I like to trade on the higher time frames. I personally stick to the 4-hour chart and etc. I'm more interested in catching those bigger moves, and I find it a little less stressful. But my point in making this video is to hopefully give you some tips for the people who do like to day trade. By all means, do what works for you. And if you find something that works in the 5-minute chart, that is awesome for you. Comment down below if you think there's anything that I missed in this video. I would love to hear from you. Guys, thank you very much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, do me a big favor. If you made it to the end of the video, comment down below that you made it to the end. I always appreciate your comments, and I try and heart them just to let you know that I appreciate them. And then also hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for more free trading content. And guys, we will see you back in the next one. Thanks so much.